Alrighty, we are on. So, Lauren, please tell me.
Hello, Leah.
Hi. Thanks for having a chat with me. Um.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're the best. So you're from Ireland, right?
Yeah, I'm from Dublin in Ireland, so I hope the accent is easy to understand, that what I say doesn't get lost in translation.
Oh, I can understand you perfectly. But so, tell me about how you became vegan.
So how I became vegan was, for me, it was a kind of a spiritual thing. So I got very into meditation, yoga. I'm someone who's really interested in mental health. So it just was kind of a spiritual thing. I think it was like a purity thing, where there's a thing in yoga called ahimsa that's all about doing no harm under any circumstances if you can avoid it. So that's how I got into it. But I think it's easy to get addicted to this purity thing, and this idea of like perfection. It's impossible for no harm to ever be done, or
Right.
for there to be no destruction in any way.
Right.
So it just came from that sort of perspective.
So, so you were doing yoga and you were interested in this kind of stuff before you actually became vegan?
Yeah, exactly. It came from there. So I was just very much in that lifestyle. A lot of other people around me would have been vegetarian and vegan. And it just was kind of something that I got led to it just by this notion of, say, like Hinduism, Buddhism, that kind of thing.
Sure.
And it was, again, it's just all purely spiritual. It wasn't really so much like ethical about the animals themselves. It was kind of like a sacrifice that I was making as a sign of being thankful.
I see.
To life.
I see. Okay. But so, how long were you vegan?
So I was vegetarian for 10 years, and during those 10 years there were periods of being completely vegan.
Yeah.
So I got more and more into it as time went on. So I think as well, another side of things are, as a gay person, I think when you're in like you're LGBT, you're kind of more prone to be attracted to other like social justice issues.
Sure.
And these things are in your periphery a lot more, I think. So this was like all around me as well, and the society is really pushing you in that direction.
Right.
To be this like vision of perfect. So I think that now, especially, we're starting to kind of play God a little bit. Like we're defying the rules of nature, and we're trying to bend reality into what we think that our perfect vision of the world is.
Right, exactly.
So it's, not eating meat, even the whole kind of trans movement and that sort of thing. We're trying to bend nature to suit our wants and our own vision of what good is.
Right. I totally agree. But so you were vegetarian, vegan for like 10 years. What sort of, can you just kind of like tell me about that? Like what sort of foods were you eating? Like what, did you only hang out with vegetarians, that kind of thing?
So the type of food that I ate, I didn't really try to replace the meat. Like it was just vegetables, fruit, like grains, legumes, that type of thing. But I don't feel that I did make an effort to substitute the vitamins and try to get them in somewhere. Mm-hmm. But there was always something kind of lacking. Like I never felt 100%. I always kind of felt a little bit icky.
Sure.
And, in the beginning, I think when you stop eating meat at the very beginning, because your body is kind of cleansing itself out, you do feel good for a brief amount of time.
Right.
But as time went on, that started to like decline. So I started to become like very spacey. Like I had a lot of mental fog. My blood pressure was always low. Like every time I went to a doctor, my blood pressure was like an old person, but I am someone who's very active. So it didn't really make sense.
Interesting.
I was bordering on anemia. I was very pale.
Sure.
But I was very, very into this, and I was surrounded by other kind of vegans and vegetarians as well. So that kind of like influenced me. Like, you know the way you see the videos of what happens in the factories, like that was always, like, my friends always kind of looking at that sort of thing, and it was encouraging to sort of stick with it, I guess.
I see.
I was never very judgmental of other people who would eat meat, but I definitely really promoted the whole vegan thing. I really did believe in it.
Sure, yeah. So you said you felt icky. Did you like want meat while you were a vegetarian?
So it was strange. Like, I wouldn't look at a burger, or I wouldn't walk by somewhere and really want it or crave it, but I was craving something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there was something that was always missing, or something. It was like your body, I think, it intuitively knows what it needs for its optimum health.
Right.
And my body was telling me that something isn't right. So there was something that I was wanting, but there was I think I was mentally blocking it out, if you get me.
No, oh yeah.
So I would have cravings for, like, seafood was a huge thing for me. Like, my mouth would water if I was around seafood or anything. And that was like, cravings would come in for that kind of a thing. I was just never, like, you'd be full, but then you'd be hungry kind of straight away afterwards. It just wasn't, I didn't have a natural satisfaction or anything from eating. I was missing something all the time.
Right, I understand. But so you're like, were all your friends vegetarian, or did you have some that ate meat?
No, there were some that ate meat as well, but a lot of them were really hardcore into this. Like, I was surrounded by it a lot. So some people ate meat. Like, I wasn't too judgmental about it. But I think you get so brainwashed as well. Like, you think that you're right and you're good. And I think that is a huge thing in society at the moment. We divide everything, like, good, evil, like very black and white thinking. So I thought I was good. So if other people were eating meat, I didn't want it because I thought I was right.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly how I felt when I was vegetarian for a year when I was a teenager. So did you feel like you were, like, morally superior for being vegetarian?
I didn't want to see myself that way, but yes, definitely. I did feel that way. I felt like I was doing the right thing, and I felt like I didn't have to be guilty.
Right.
So I felt like I was doing a good thing, and I was morally right. So yeah, I did. It is a moral superiority thing.
Sure.
And, like, I saw myself as pure. My body was cleaner. Definitely this huge clean thing.
Yeah. Do you think that's kind of like a really big focus in the, like, vegetarian, sphere you were just kind of explaining to me, like being pure, being clean?
Yeah, I think it is. Again, I just think it comes back a lot to this thing in the West, especially, where we're just so focused on doing the right thing. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it gets to a point where it's a bit obsessive, where you lose your ability to critically think of things,
right?
Think things through.
Right.
So things aren't as simple as we're trying to make them out. Like, it is, nobody likes death or likes the idea of an animal dying, because we love animals.
Yeah.
But I think death is natural. It's part of life, and it's a necessary part of life.
Right.
The nature is designed like animals. We all eat each other. It's a cycle.
Right.
And it's an ugly truth that we don't want to acknowledge, but it's just, it is part of life. So I think it's very difficult to accept ugly truths, basically, that we just want to think that we're good and we're right and try to do our best.
Right. I agree. Yeah, I think you make a good point. I mean, like, when an animal is killed for someone to eat it, like, there is, like, death brings life,
Yeah.
So this animal may die, may suffer, but the thing is these animals, I mean, I don't really want to get into commercial farming and all that bullshit right now, but I'm just saying, like, the general concept of killing an animal to eat it for nutrients. If you're doing your best and you're actually very efficient at doing so, you're not going to torture the animal. You're going to kill it. You're going to kill it quickly, and then you're going to eat it. And that it will give you sustenance and it will give you life, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely, I totally agree. There are obvious issues with how meat is killed in some, or how meat is sourced in some instances. There can be cruelty. I obviously don't agree with harm if it can be avoided.
Right.
But I think we need to accept, in the interest of our optimum health, that it is just a very sad, unfortunate reality that we have to deal with. I think that we need to get better at accepting reality, even if it's uncomfortable.
Totally agree.
We haven't evolved to be where we're at now as animals by eating leaves and eating vegetables. Right. It came from meat, from learning how to cook with fire, and that's why we are the way we are today. I simply was not as healthy as a vegan or a vegetarian. I was, especially mentally, I was so spaced out all the time. I had no focus. I just thought it was my personality. I was really dreamy, but it was just, I wasn't grounded. I was lacking so much in essential vitamins that I needed.
That sounds so frustrating.
Yeah.
So you were like...
It is.
Were you like really trying, were you still trying to gain concentration, gain focus, or were you just like too out of it to really, be doing that?
I was trying, like it affected me in school and in work up until cause I've only been eating meat now for under a year. I'm only back eating meat.
Okay.
But my job was hugely affected. Like I just couldn't concentrate and I was just tired all the time, no matter how much sleep I was getting. I just found myself very run down. And I would try to exercise more and try to eat more like almonds and that type of thing to ground myself. But I just couldn't escape it. Like just the total exhaustion. I was constantly going to the doctor over this fatigue, and I would drink 3 liters of water a day, and it just wasn't hitting the mark. It was, again, your body is telling you there's something missing, there's something not right. Your body is trying to communicate with you. But I think we're so focused on doing the right thing and being compassionate and being kind that we block out our intuition, essentially, that something is wrong. We don't want to hear it because we think it's bad.
Right. I'm totally with you. But so you went to the doctor and you told them you were fatigued, you told them you were just not having enough energy. What did they say?
They did ask about my diet, and I think that this narrative is being so pushed into our faces at the moment that being vegan is the right way to go. I think there's a lot of propaganda on Netflix, especially. I think it's out there. So they didn't come out and say, okay, you need to eat this, you need to eat meat. They just said, oh, you're lacking in these vitamins, and telling me just to kind of take them like, it's over-the-counter vitamins that you would just buy.
Right.
But it's pretty obvious, like, where they come from naturally and what I should be doing. But I feel like even doctors didn't want to touch on that. They're just like, oh, make sure you substitute it properly and you can take supplements and that type of thing.
Sure, yeah, I'm sure that's what American doctors would say as well. Because I don't think that they're, like, I know they're not taught that, like, veganism isn't a great diet. They're just taught to be like, or veganism, vegetarianism, doesn't matter. They're not even taught to, like, ask you about your diet, it's a mess. But so, how did you finally get back to meat?
So there were a couple of things that happened. The largest, I suppose, factor that woke me up was traveling. Mm-hmm. So I spent a lot of time in Asia, like in India, Thailand, like Southeast Asia and Australia.
Cool.
And in these places, as a vegetarian, it just wasn't really a concept over there. But I could see that we are very privileged to be able to be vegan. In some countries, like, it's just not an option.
Right.
Like, meat could be their whole source of income, or animal products as well.
Yeah.
And it's essential for some people who are already in poverty. So I kind of felt like a bit of a dick. I felt a bit full of myself, going around, oh, do you have a vegan option for that?
Right.
And it's just, I felt very ignorant. Then when I was in Australia, I lived in a very rural area, like in the bush for a couple of months. And in my job, like I worked on fruit farms. So there were like snakes there that could kill you in minutes.
Wow.
There were dingoes and there were like predator animals
Yeah.
all around me.
Yeah.
And you have to learn to kind of live amongst that.
Right.
So I started to look at nature in a less romantic type of vision.
Sure.
I think that we look at animals almost as like children. I think we all do that, especially with our dogs.
Right.
And we project onto animals human feelings and emotions. So while animals, of course, have some level of emotion, they're not humans. They don't have the same cognitive abilities that we have.
Right.
And I started to see the system of how basically everything, every living thing, from plants to animals to humans, have a defense mechanism. They don't want to die. Nothing wants to die, and
Right.
a means of reproduction. So I think everything has a will to live, but death is necessary to sustain life. And I started seeing even cute animals like wallabies were extremely vicious. Like I think if an animal is given half the chance, it will eat you if it can. It's not
Right.
looking at you like a friend, which is how I think we're looking at animals like, oh, they're our friends, and we're equating them to humans.
Right.
But they're not. We're all part of a larger system.
Right.
So it was really traveling that started to shake my ideas that I had from, I think, from being privileged in the West.
Yeah, I completely agree. I wasn't vegetarian when I went to Europe for the first time. I didn't leave the United States until I was like 21 or 22. The first place I went was Ireland, actually.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, it was really great. But I just, when I was traveling, like I was just thinking about like being vegan, because I went to Ireland and England and France and, you know, romped about Paris or whatever. I was like, how would you do this if you, and you know, you're just staying in like basic hotels, you know.
Yeah.
That sometimes, and in Europe, they sometimes don't have a toilet in the hotel room, right, where you're staying. Like, so
Okay.
if they don't have like, I'm just saying, like, you know, they're not gonna have a kitchen. They're not gonna have you can't just like whip up a meal in your hotel room. Most places in the world, you know.
Sorry,
Sorry, I know I cut out. Sorry, so sorry. I was just saying, like, you're not going to have the ability to whip up a meal in your hotel room, chances are, wherever you're staying. So, like, I was like, how would vegan people possibly do this, you know?
just fruit like apples or something. You're just starving constantly.
Right. You're just, like, snacking all the time. Like, that is just...
That's a huge thing. It's the snacking. Another thing to mention is you see this vision of a vegan, like you're going to lose lots of weight and you're going to go down to your natural healthy self. I gained weight. I was heavier than I ever was when I was vegetarian and vegan, because you're replacing it with a lot of the time processed crap.
Right.
You set out to eat this kind of all natural diet, but it's very difficult to keep buying like fresh vegetables constantly, because they have a sell by date. They're going to go off very quickly.
Right.
So you buy a lot of packaged things that are going to last you longer and that are cheaper, because not everybody can afford that type of like a vegan lifestyle. It's very expensive. So you do end up eating a lot more junk than I feel you do with meat.
Right, definitely. Do you remember, like, did you eat a lot of soy or a lot of seitan or whatever the heck?
Yeah, a lot of soy, all soy milk, also like a lot of tofu, that kind of thing. But yeah, the soy, I swapped them to oat. Like, I still am not a huge milk drinker anyway. Dairy doesn't agree with me too much. So I like almond milk, but I rarely would need milk anyway. But yeah, a lot of soy.
Gotcha.
And I heard that having a lot of health implications as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a lot of processed estrogen in soy, which can be like harsher on women than it is on men, just because we already have, our own estrogen. But when you add like fake bullshit to that, it's like not really a great combination. But sorry, going back to
Yeah.
when you started eating meat, do you remember like the first time you actually like ate meat after such a long time?
Yeah, I was like a lion had emerged out of me. It was insane. I had been thinking about it for a long time about going back to eating meat, but I felt like I was failing. That's what it's like. It's like, oh, I'm bad now, or I don't know. Your moral superiority. It's hard to let go of that, I think.
Sure.
So my girlfriend was eating a chicken wing, and I was like, okay, this is it. This is the day.
The moment.
And I had. Mhm.
No, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So I had a bite of the chicken wing, and it was just, I can't even describe it, the euphoria. It was physical. Like, my whole body was like, yes. It was just such a relief. And I know that kind of sounds like that's in your mind, but my body was almost thankful for this, for proper nutrition. And then I couldn't stop. It was like I had been starved for the past 10 years. So every opportunity, if I went by a deli, I'd get a piece of chicken, like a chicken fillet. And I went on a rampage, and I was trying every type of meat I possibly could to kind of make up for it.
That's great.
So, yeah, like, it's calmed down now, and I've figured out what I like and what I don't like. But I couldn't get enough of it. I was constantly craving it and hungry when I first started eating it again.
Oh, delicious. Wait, so how old are you?
How old am I? I'm 29.
Okay, got you. I'm 30. I was gonna ask you something about the meat and stuff. Oh, did you ever have, so before you started eating meat again, did you ever have dreams about eating meat?
Dreams about eating meat?
Yeah.
No, I can't say I have, maybe, but no, is that something that you experience?
No, I've heard of people doing that, like people who were vegorexic, like having a lot of dreams about eating meat, like because I think it's because their body really wants them to eat meat, you know, but
Yeah.
they're so indoctrinated that they like ignore it for a while. I've just heard
Yeah, I
that.
completely could see that happening. Yeah, because you're, as I said, body's trying to tell you something.
Right, exactly. So I know what a fry is, but a lot of people who watch this probably won't know. Can you tell us what it is?
A fry, it's a staple Irish breakfast, I guess. So you have like your two sausages, some bacon, black pudding. You know, do you have black pudding in the States?
I had no, but I had it in Ireland and it was delicious.
Did you like it, really?
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, I don't know. I prefer white pudding, but I think black, I don't like the texture of black pudding. But yeah, and then you have like your beans, your eggs. It's just anything you can possibly fry is on your plate. It's a delight. I had one this morning, actually.
Oh, I'm so happy for you. But so you missed out on those when you were a vegetarian.
Yeah, that part was difficult. As much as I didn't really crave meat when I saw people eating it, it's a cultural thing here. Like everybody has a fry in the weekend.
Right.
So the whole house just smelled delicious, and like I would have to sit there then with my bowl of oatmeal, or you know what I mean, or just some other bullshit. It's really alienating.
Right. It is really alienating, and like I mean, unfortunately, there's not anything that culturally significant, I don't think, in the U.S., but there is a very...
Bacon and pancakes.
Oh, well, sure, that's great. Those are good, too. But, we have our, like, big meals, like, for holidays or whatever, but, it is really alienating, and I think that's kind of, in a weird way, I think that's kind of maybe a way that vigorexia kind of draws people in because maybe they feel alienated or isolated or different in some way, like to begin with, before they're having any dietary restrictions, and they like kind of identify with that, and they're like, oh, well, I'll try this, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean...
I think...
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, sorry.
No, it's okay, honey. I just think that, like, I think it's very normal to feel different or, you know, have a different perspective or be different, you know, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I don't think that, and it can be hard, like, really it can, like, I know, but I don't think that
Mm-hmm.
means anyone should like restrict nutrition because of that.
Right, and it is restricting your nutrition. I think as well, from another perspective, you're sacrificing your nutrition to take care of animals out of their interests. And I think that there's so much, there are so many social justice issues going on at the moment that it's easy to hate yourself. And I think that there is a lot of, just from my own perspective now, my opinion, I think there's a lot of internalized hate going on, and we're trying to punish ourselves in certain ways and sacrifice. So I think we look at animals and we think, oh, like what have we done? And we've tortured and killed so many animals. Like they're equating slaughterhouses, say, to murder, and this type of like mass murder. So I think that it's in your mind, and you're feeling guilty all the time, and you are not giving yourself nutrition for the betterment of animals. But I think there has to come a time where you have to stop feeling guilty all the time about everything and love yourself and actually look after your health. And it's okay to prioritize that. You don't have to always feel bad about everything. I think we try to take on responsibility for every issue that's going on at the moment.
Right, I could not agree more. And I think that being vegorexic vegetarian is really anti-human because, like,
Mm-hmm.
you're not nourishing yourself properly, and you're prioritizing farm animals over yourself or over other humans. What I think is like honestly kind of hilarious is like how um, how frequently I've had interactions with vegetarians who claim that they just love animals so much, but like
Mm-hmm.
they have like what they really care about, what they exclusively care about is livestock animals, because a ton of animals are killed in the harvesting of crops.
Yes,
A ton
absolutely.
of
Yeah.
insects are killed. A ton of small rodents are killed. Like and then when you fuck up the soil, like that hurts
Mm-hmm.
the soil. So like they don't care about all that, but
Yeah,
they care
yeah.
about the
It's a lot of
chickens
hypocrisy.
and the goats and the whatever. It's really odd to me.
I agree. Like there's a lot of hypocrisy and holes in the whole argument. They're only prioritizing certain lives, as you
Right.
said. They're totally forgetting about the destruction that goes on with the crop farming. And as you said, the animals, the homes who are destroyed, they're being killed. Insects. It's incredibly destructive to harvest that much, like grains and that type of thing, and that's totally forgotten.
Right.
Or I know some vegans as well. I find that there's always an exception, that everybody will have an exception. Like that's something that is just a push too far. Like I know one girl with a motorbike, and she's like, "Oh yeah, well I still use leather because it's safer for me if I fall." So it's kind of like, there's always an exception or a hole. There's logic that doesn't make sense that's just completely ignored.
Right.
And I think another example is if you ask somebody, would you bring up your child as vegan, or if you had a baby, would you bring the baby up as vegan? And I think there is a gut instinct that's just no. I don't know anybody who would be happy with that. I'm sure there are some people, but it's the minority.
Right. Absolutely. And like I hate to go here, but I'm gonna go here. A lot of children die from vegan diets.
Really?
Yeah, it's illegal in Italy to feed a child a vegan diet because it's considered child abuse there.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah,
I never knew that.
yeah, and a lot of babies, like if mom is vegan, there's little to no nutrients in her breast milk, so some babies have died from lack of nutrition that way too.
God, that's
I
awful.
know it's horrible, and people think that it's like this just like trivial thing, and
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard people say, "Oh, you did it wrong," you know?
Yeah, exactly. You did it wrong. Like, oh, you didn't substitute it correctly, or
Right.
you're being lazy.
Right.
But like the volume of food you would have to eat to match what you would get in a piece of meat is unbelievable. Like you couldn't eat that much.
Right, exactly. It's totally implausible, and like, it's really sad to me that people just do that to themselves and to kids, because they're doing it to kids too, which is just really twisted.
Yeah, pushing their own agenda onto their kids and projecting that onto them. It just makes me very sad at the lack of individual thought and people thinking for themselves. I think that it now everyone just jumps on every bandwagon. Anything that sounds like be nice, this is how you be nice. So you're kind if you do this, you're a good person if you do this.
Right.
We're all blindly following all of these bandwagons, and I find that very little people are thinking for themselves, because they don't want to go against the mob, or they don't want to go against the nice thing to do. Like we're all just so hung up on being nice.
Right.
And it's detrimental. You cannot just keep your whole focus can't just be to be a nice person. You have to have boundaries. You have to have self-respect, and you have to be able to take care of yourself. You can't just keep just doing everything to be nice to your own detriment.
Right. You just can't be perfect all the time. People want to be perfect all the time. Do you think that there's like a link with vegetarian vigorexia with religion?
It is like a religion, like many things now as well. It is like a religion. Absolutely, there's like a hierarchy, and you're trying to strive to reach perfection, or the ideal. Like I knew a girl as well who was vegan, and we worked together, and she wouldn't use the sandwich maker because cheese had touched it at one point. Like even if you cleaned it, it's just that cheese had been there. And I felt guilty. I was like, oh God, like I'm just a phony. I will never be like you. And you're always trying to be, again, pure and clean and perfect. It's like you're trying to prove your own self-worth, or give yourself something to feel good about.
Sure.
It is hugely like a religion. There's no room for mistakes, and then you're very much, if you stop being a vegan, you can just be excommunicated. The people, they'll demonize you, and you're just kind of out of the clique.
Right, absolutely. Were you excommunicated by anyone for having eaten meat?
Well, I felt very guilty about it, and I was very hesitant to tell people, because there would be certain people in my life who would probably look down on me for it, or think that I had failed in some way. So it wasn't something that I broadcasted. I'm more open about it now, because I think that there comes a point where you just have to speak up and be honest about things. But I was afraid to tell people, and I don't think that you should feel that way. So I wasn't shunned as such, but I have definitely, there would be people who would respect me less.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's just really, that's really messed up. And yeah, you said like you were afraid to tell people, something like you ate chicken wings, and that's, I mean, it's real, you're right. Like people really are afraid, and this is a few years ago, but some famous vegan video gal like was caught in South America like eating eggs or something in a restaurant, and like someone recognized her and like put the video out, because she had been secret about the fact that she was eating
secretly eating eggs.
Yeah, and it was like a huge deal, and everyone just, all her like fans were like, "Oh, you were never vegan," blah blah blah. Like,
oh my God,
so unhealthy and abusive to treat someone that way.
It is. Like, imagine shaming somebody for eating.
Right. Exactly. It's just,
it's insane.
It's so messed up.
And as you said, it is unhealthy, because it's pushing. I don't think you should shame somebody for their diet. Because where does it go? It starts with being vegan, but then people get into like the clean eating, or there are the people who will only eat, say, fruit if it has fallen naturally from a tree, because they don't want to harm anything, and it just becomes addictive and an unattainable standard that you're running after. And you shouldn't be shamed for eating a meal. It's insane.
Right, totally. Well, I like to shame vegans, but I hear you. Um, so you're like preparing meat and cooking meat and eating meat on the regular now, right?
Yeah, and I found that very difficult at the beginning, just the texture. So even like to handle like a raw chicken breast and a steak, I did really struggle with that. I found it really weird because I had brainwashed myself into looking at it as a corpse. And I had another friend as well who would refer to it like, oh, how does it feel to eat a corpse? So I had all these hang-ups